here we are. It's not all that far from Christmas, and my latest book, Charles Dickens' Christmas, is already out there. It's available on Amazon and most good bookstores. Now, what's different about Charles Dickens' Christmas? Well, for a start, you won't find many mentions of Christmas trees. Why? Well, because Christmas trees hadn't really been introduced until probably the middle of Dickens' life. There had been various Georgian kings and queens, and as we all know, they were really German, and they would have had their own Christmas trees, but you see, nobody was growing them in this country, so they used other evergreen, and they weren't that popular, and there wasn't the means of disseminating information. But by about the 1840s, we had the first really mass distribution of press. And whereas they were still reliant on engraved plates, photography was just round the corner in terms of being used for publication. And Prince Albert and Queen Victoria were, without a doubt, extraordinarily popular. So in about 1848, the Graphic, I think, was the first, quickly followed by the Illustrated London News, put up on their front page a picture of the royal Christmas tree, Victoria and Albert and the children around them. And that caught the imagination, and off it went, and various Victorian entrepreneurs fell over themselves trying to grow them in time to create a new Christmas market. And after Dickens had died in the 1870s, the Christmas tree was really taking off, but it didn't actually form much in the way of central part of Christmas for Charles Dickens. So what did he have? Well, he had greenery, lots of it. And if you read the excerpts from the Pickwick Papers in my book, you'll see for yourself that they used to have greenery on mantelpieces, hanging from the ceiling, often with some mistletoe in there as a kissing bough. And that is actually also referred to before Dickens by a chap called Washington Irving, who was an American travelling in Britain, and he did something called Christmas at Bracebridge Hall, and I have referred to that in Charles Dickens' Christmas. But also, I want to recommend you to read something much older, and I have taken excerpts from it, and that is the Pickwick Papers. The Pickwick Papers are absolutely marvellous and really, really, really funny at times, and also give an insight into the everyday activities in the Victorian period. And they're far more relatable than you might first think. The fact is, they had taxis. They didn't have automobiles in any shape or form, and not even steam-powered ones. But they had horse-drawn ones. And I'm not talking hansom cabs. They came along later. So it's always worth researching. But now the conversations in the pubs are the sort of things you overhear today. The language isn't that difficult, and it's really good bedtime reading. I was reading it to my wife in bed, and she gently went off to sleep. Not because Dickens was boring. I suspect it was my quality of my voice. So I'm going to show you something. This is modern and wouldn't have been quite in the shape. Now, this is a Christmas wreath. Said he picking up his glasses in the middle of it. Said he peering through it now. A Christmas wreath wouldn't really have appeared much in Charles Dickens' time, and I'll explain why. Wreaths were associated with funerals. You had talked about a funeral wreath. That said, people were beginning to plant a lot of greenery around into a sort of vaguely wreath shape. And that was moving on. Greenery could be hung on the door in towns as people tried to recapture what they thought they'd lost by moving from the countryside. I cannot emphasize enough the sheer change in life and in the tempo of life that happened over Dickens' middle age. It was astonishingly rapid. people got left behind and children got employed where the children should not have been employed. And from Charles Dickens' point of view, that hurt because he had to work in an ink factory at the age of 10 because his father, again, went into bankruptcy. That affected the whole of Dickens' life to the point that, although he did his best for his wife and children at first, it palled. The strain was a bit too much. And he and his wife basically separated, extraordinarily enough, by him putting a bookshelf between him and her in the bedroom. An extraordinary thing, isn't it? And later he cut her out of family life and tried to compensate by putting on little plays and distractions for his children, and you'll read about it in Charles Dickens' Christmas. But all that said, we owe a lot to Charles Dickens. He didn't actually invent Christmas, but he popularised it. He brought something of the countryside into the towns, into those black satanic mills. He was a complicated man. And his Christmas, whereas it would have had elements that we find familiar today, there wouldn't have been Christmas trees, there wouldn't have been nativity scenes. Christmas cribs were well known across Europe, but they hadn't really caught on here. And it was really after Dickens' life that the high Anglicans began to sort of imitate the Catholics with their depictions of the Christmas crib. That really didn't happen in Dickens' time. People had a lot of nostalgia about Christmas, and Dickens dealt in it. It may surprise you to know that he lost money on A Christmas Carol. He actually had to borrow money to get it published because it was so popular, but he had absolutely no idea about price points and profitability, which is probably endemic in his family based on what happened with his father. It's sad but true. Anyway, read Dickens' Christmas. You'll learn a lot, and you will see greenery, but you won't find it plaited into wreaths like this. Though, I tell you what, you will see that. Does that ring any bells with you? So the wreath would have been on someone's bodge. Isn't that fun? But not on your door. So, Charles Dickens' Christmas, published by the History Press, written by me, Andrew Hubert von Stauffer, available in all good bookshops, available on Amazon, available in Europe, available in the United States and Canada. So, buy it, enjoy it. It's not expensive, it's not that big, but it gives you a little taste of Victorian Christmas. And it's just one of the many Christmas books I've written.